But let's begin by introducing Dr. Iliyasu Gashinbaki, President and Chairman, Governing Council of the Chartered Institute of Forensics and Certified Fraud Investigators of Nigeria. Dr. Gashinbaki, thanks for joining us on One-on-One.
Thank you for having me.
Right.
Yes.
It's a rather complicated and mouthful here, the Chartered Institute of Forensics and Certified Fraud Investigators. But more importantly, it's relatively new.
Yes.
So let's begin from how this institute came about.
Yeah, we are actually fairly new. The institute got chartered precisely on the 23rd of December 2022. So we are barely 1 year, 6 or 7 months old now since we're in July.
Right.
And of course, again, it's an institute that should have been there maybe several decades ago, considering its strategic importance to the economy and to the to the proper functioning of the financial systems, and of course, its applications in the law enforcement ecosystem.
Right. So what does it seek to do precisely? I know you say fraud investigators and forensics, and what is the application of forensics in detecting or stemming fraud?
Well, the applications of forensics within the ecosystems of law enforcement has wide range applications. As of today, forensics cuts across about 127 domain of knowledge. And it is very, very useful when it comes to crime investigations, analysis, and discoveries of both physical, economic, financial crimes, and digital crimes. So its applications and its broad nature is multi-sectorial and multidisciplinary in nature.
So for this institute, what are its statements in the Nigerian financial ecosystem?
Well, maybe I will put it in this context. There are key component of the law that empowers the institute to intervene in the entire financial ecosystem and then the law enforcement sector in Nigeria. One of those key areas is the powers to establish forensic laboratories for analysis, for government, for law enforcement, for private sector, and for even individuals. So what that does is that for the very first time, forensic analysis can now, for lack of a better word, it's now democratized in a way that even people outside the law enforcement, private lawyers, accountants, engineers, can now go to independent forensic laboratories under the institute to analyze anything that they want for the purposes of investigations. And the council, for the purposes of that, has approved the establishment of 5 laboratories. The document forensic lab that will be responsible for analysis of any form of documents. And that is why once that document lab is up, that means the issues of questioned documents, forgeries of any form of certificates, revenue receipts, and anything documents, we now have a lab that can authenticate its originality. Then the digital lab will also deal with anything to do with servers, computers, cameras, and even the cyberspace. So it's it's also going to deal with that. Then we have the engineering lab. I must add that I can't wait to have the engineering lab up. You've seen what has happened in Jos recently. We have had cases of multiple collapse of buildings all over this country, almost like every other month. Now with the engineering lab up, I think we will put an end to that. And we have taken the first step of engaging the Council for Regulation of Engineering in Nigeria, COREN, to work with them to see that the laboratory comes up so that structural analysis will be done, and but for also concrete and structures. Because basically, once that is up, I think we will see the beginning of the end of engineering fraud or engineering malpractices.
Well, of all these labs that
Yes.
You've secured approval to establish, none is up and running yet.
Yes, but for example, the digital lab, NIDA, has offered to work with us to establish jointly the digital cyber forensic laboratories. And then, of course, the last two that I haven't mentioned, which is the medical laboratory that will deal with DNA, and then it will deal with also toxicology, where toxicology will be very helpful for food and drugs, which means that laboratory will support whatever NAFDAC is doing. And then the last, but not the least, is the physical and ballistic forensics laboratory. Now, the physical lab, basically that's what people see in the movies. Once there's a crime scene, it's condoned and all of that. So that's a typical setup that you find done by physical forensics and ballistic forensic laboratory. So basically those are the 5 key laboratories that the Institute will operate.
Right, not amazing that all this while there hasn't been a body like this, as you stated in your opening comments.
Yeah, it's there have been several agitations for establishing forensic bodies. In fact, when we went to the National Assembly to get the charter, we found, I think, about 4 similar bodies wanted to get charter. And what the National Assembly, in its own wisdom, decided to say, you know what? We have multiple bodies coming to knock our door for legislation of forensics. Let's consolidate everything into one. And that's what they did. They collapsed every other charter before them into our own, and they gave us a single charter with Section 6 of the Act that empowers the Institute to intervene in the multi-sectorial and the multidisciplinary areas of forensics.